Good evening, guys. Welcome back to another action-packed episode of Bag It Corner. Thrilling. Stay in your seats. So we've got the Holley NH Carb from the truck. It's in pretty decent shape. Probably be a really good core, I guess, if I sent it in. But we're not going to send it in. Last time you saw when the truck was running, I used this carburetor. I made up some gaskets, just very temporary. Didn't put a ton of time into them. And truck ran great. Gaskets leaked. And but it still ran good. I mean, even with the leaking, it was fine. So we've got a bowl here that's been heavily soldered on. Matter of fact, I even had to add some solder to it to stop it from actually pouring out of the bowl. But it still leaked. Yeah, whatever. The needle and seat needs changing because I could not get the needle and seat to stop filling the bowl, basically, stop leaking past the seat. So there's your, oh, you guys can't see, I'm sorry. There's your needle. You could take it out of the bag, wouldn't that be easier? There's your needle, there's your seat. And let's just gash this open. Have a peek at what we got here. And I'll try not to lose these parts. All right. There's your seat. And there's your needle. Now, can you guys see, if I get in close enough, it'll go macro mode, I think. And it'll kind of zoom in. Yeah, well, it doesn't want to do that today. Anyway, it's got a Viton tip, which is just a rubberized tip. And I don't know if any of you guys had ever worked on, say, old lawnmowers, okay? Old two-stroke engines, and they often had a Viton seat, not the needle. It was just basically a square with a hole in the middle, kind of like a rubber O-ring. And instead of the Viton tip, they had that, and then the brass would just seat right into that. Anyway, now they go with the Viton, which gives you a better sealing surface inside that seat, and that seat is again, please just zoom in for me, is a taper fit down in that hole, a precision taper fit. So when this guy goes in here, it makes a perfect seal. And then fuel no longer enters through here. You know what? I open this up. You guys can see how that works in here. And I'll just slide this away, and I'll try not to lose it. I'll open this up. By the way, I got a new bowl. Here's the deal. I soldered on this all day trying to seal it up, but a new bowl was very, very cheap, and it's the same as the old bowl. So just go with the new bowl. Stop with that soldering business. Let's open this up. We need a 3/4 wrench, I believe. Don't lose those needle seat parts, Vince. You're making new gaskets. It's your bowl plug. That's your drain. I'm sure you're not all that fascinated by that, but if you want to drain your bowl out, just take that out a bit, and then it drains out through this hole down there. That aside, there is your bowl. As you can see, I made some gaskets. Not too professional, but you know, they sort of did the trick. So there's the inside of the bowl. I mean, that look at the inside of that bowl. So what you can tell is that this probably sat for a long time with water in it and pitted the bottom of that bowl. You know, before anyone got around to getting this running, which I think was maybe early 80s, somewhere in there, possibly. It probably sat for a long time, and there you go, you get water in the bowl. And it's junk. New one? Nice. Brand new. That's going to be nice in here. Fits that. Oh yeah, fits that flange just snug. Then you got the float. Now I did check the float before I kind of lightly rebuilt this. It's your float pin, by the way. Let's put these into here so we don't lose them. It's your float pin. That's your float. The way you check your float is just stick it in a bowl of water, hold it under the water, any bubbles come out, that's probably leaky. And again, you can solder up these floats if you want to. You can also buy them pretty cheap. So, you know, if it's handy for you, just buy them. Don't bother soldering them. I tested this one, held it under the water, no bubbles. Float's nice, so nothing wrong with that float. Here is the needle. Now what I did to get this working temporarily is I just stuck a small little O-ring in there. And that worked temporarily. It slowed the flow. It wasn't perfect, but it slowed the flow. And I even kind of lapped, I even took some time and took that needle, put some lapping compound on it, dropped it down there, and spun it around inside the seat. But, you know, it worked a little, but not perfect. Let's get that over there. We're probably not going to use it anyway. Got the main jet in here. The light is not being friendly, but you can sort of see it. Here, you can see it down there now. Now, this will come out. But I could also try to take it out and damage it. And then I'd be no further ahead because I'd still need a new one. And there's nothing wrong with this one. Just leave it alone. If it wants to stay in there, just leave it there. Here is the jet. So these are terms I know from two-stroke engines because I worked on two-stroke engines most of my life, actually, since I was a kid. Raced drag sleds, things like that. So lots of rebuilding, lots of repairs. This is your jet needle. This is what we used to call it, jet needle. This also would be called your fuel needle, your fuel adjustment, I guess would be called. This sits, it's a little bit different from a two-stroke. A two-stroke would sit inside the needle jet, which would be down inside here. And then you would still have a main jet down at the bottom. So it's slightly different. So I'm going to still call it a jet needle. This jet needle is in nice shape. There's no reason to regrind it. Looks really good. If I was going to regrind it, I would take it over to my, to my valve cutting setup, my valve grinder. And I would chuck it up at, I'm going to say that's roughly 14 degrees, that cut there. Sorry, 12, 14 with my angle. You can buy these cheap on Amazon, by the way, with my angle calculator. Just kind of zero it out, put it flat, zero it out, set it here, flat, and then just move this until your taper is sitting flat on a table, on a flat surface, and look at the number. I believe 14 came up, which is actually a 76 degree cut. So you would set your valve cutter, your valve grinder for that, which, here, let me just take you over here. Let's have a look. This is my Black & Decker Super Surface valve refacer. Anyway, you chuck it up to, I got that one set in at 74. I've done a few needles. I do a number of needles for different things, for hit and miss engines, things like that. And sometimes I got to cut them reverse or forwards, and it just depends which way you're going to move well, I equate this to a tailstock on a lathe, so I'm just going to call it tailstock, okay? So you just chuck it up and make sure that's resurfaced nice and to zero, and then cut your new angle. Grind your new angle, sorry. That's what I do because I make fuel mixture needles as well for engines. Anyway, that's what I would do if that looked nasty. And they can get nasty. You know, if somebody takes this needle and cranks it in, because down in here, you've also got a seat down in there. You'll have a taper, kind of a matching taper for this, or you should have. I don't know because I haven't had it apart. But I believe that's what's sitting in there. And if you crank this down, you end up damaging that needle. Don't do that. Don't crank it down. Anyway, enough about that. What's that guy? I don't know. I mean, here, this hole right here, this is your bowl vent. It relays to this hole here. There probably should be an idle circuit. You know, there is right there. There's a hole right in there. I don't know where that terminates. I'm wondering if that idle circuit hole terminates possibly underneath this label. I'm going to leave it be because I know I'll have to make up a couple little brass rods and peen them back in to put this label back on top. It was idling fine. We're going to leave it alone instead of venturing down that rabbit hole, right? Everything else working fine. It's your air inlet butterfly. So open is full throttle, closed is no throttle or idle because that's where you set your idle. And this is your choke. So you would end up pulling more fuel in and less, or instead of air, you would pull fuel in through here. That's about it. I mean, really, there's not a whole lot more to talk about, except for the fact that we got to get that seat out of there. Now, that seat is pretty mucked up. You guys can see that. Pretty mucked up. And I probably did some of that myself, trying to pull it out, hoping it would come. Doesn't come, slips, chews it all up. So what we're going to have to do, because we have to fix this, if we don't fix this, it will never seal, and this bowl will continue to fill, and it won't seal off and stop the inflow of fuel through here, and fuel will pour out all over the place, flood the engine, maybe end up, if I don't shut the fuel off, in the crankcase. Don't want that. Although I'll probably obviously always shut the fuel off at the tank. But anyway, let's get this set up. I think we're probably going to have to use the old flame wrench, and we're going to use an easy out. I hate doing it that way, but we're going to have to do it that way. Going to get an easy out in there, use the old flame wrench, because we kind of only going to get a couple tries at this. Use a flame wrench. I think it seats down about in the bottom here. If I look at this, the seat here, I see it probably sits down in line with this fitting, right about there. Can you see what I'm referring? Oops. See what I'm referring to? If that's sitting level, I'm gonna stick that there. So those threads right there. I mean, it could even be stuck on the shoulder here. Hard to say. The old flame wrench will probably resolve that for us. And if it doesn't resolve it for us, then what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to get an end mill, grab an end mill from the mill over beside me, and we're just going to take that down until we get it all out, and just pick it out and get it all out and clean up the threads. And that's what we'll do. So we're hoping on the flame wrench. Let's get you in the vise. Let's get this thing out. Okay, let's get some heat to it, see if we can loosen it up. I'm going to try to apply it fairly quick. Don't want to heat soak the whole part. Just want to get that seat out of there. I also don't want to soften that brass up too much. Hoping for the best. If not, you're heading for the drill press. You're wanting that cast to expand just ever so slightly. Release its grip on that brass. See if we can sneak up on it. Really want to overheat it. No movements. Keep going with the wrench. I'm calling it the wrench now. It's a flame wrench, torch. It's absolutely not budging. What we'll try to do maybe is we'll give it a whack with a hammer. Maybe unseat it. It's definitely warm enough. Get that back in there. Give it a little tap. There we go. Just let loose. We might have got lucky here, guys. Just keep it coming. I don't have a way of really turning it back in, so we'll just get some lube on it. Whew, that's tight. Like a mouse's ear. And I think it was not the threads down the bottom. I think it was that shoulder, like I had mentioned earlier, was just stuck in that bore. Just kind of pulling and turning at the same time. Okay, let's see what we got here. Here we are. We are out. Oh, why won't that? Why won't that focus? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He was commenting how well it autofocuses, and today it doesn't focus. So, whatever. Do what you can. Anyway, there it is. Out. It is out. And our carburetor is kind of warm. So we're just going to leave it be. Matter of fact, we'll just get some Croil. I use this one. It's called Javelin. It actually works better than Croil. I don't know if you guys can believe it, but it does. It's called nut and bolt loosener, and it works extremely good. Get you off here, get you off the stand, get this back to the bench, and let's see what else we can do about putting in a new seat. Okay, we got that out. That's great. I'm glad that was a success. Made my life a little easier. I didn't have to drill that out. So anyway, we got the new seat. There it is. If you don't have a screwdriver, a flat screwdriver, you can make something. I had a drag link, from you use it on a Harley or something one time. But you can make it. Look, I got this old 10 mil wrench. Make yourself, just grind it down. Make it so it fits there nice. A little bit of overhang. Fits perfect in there. Use that. Whatever's going to work. So this seat comes with an O-ring. See that? O-ring goes on. And the whole unit goes up inside. Screws in the hole. And we're going to screw that down snug. Just snug, not gorilla tight. I mean, not even monkey tight, just snug. The that little gasket's going to take up and seal up for us anyway. I did notice that this seat does not fit as tight in the bore as the previous seat. I don't know why that is. I don't think the brass has a tendency to swell or anything. So anyway, snug. There we go. Snug that up. That's snugged up in there. Let's put our needle in there. Again, there it is. Is it going to work for me now? No, it's not going to work for me. Goes in, fills up that hole. Then you got the float. Float in, and you may have to adjust this, and we're going to check on that. Goes in, the pin goes in there. We're going to have a look at the height of the float. So you guys see that? I think you can. I'm kind of looking at it with you. Basically, that float should sit level, which is 0.23 to 0.25 above this surface. Now, at virtually every carb that's got a float in it that I've ever worked on, the perfect setting for that float is for it to be sitting level. Now, that's not sitting level, so we have to adjust it. We're not going to adjust it by pushing down on it and maybe damaging that needle. We're going to pull it out, take that pin back out of there, and we're going to adjust the tang on that float. So we see that this little guy right there is what pushes against the needle. So we're going to bend that down. Take some needle nose, just ever so gently, just bend that down. Even probably tap it down, but just bend it down. Try not to damage the float itself. And stick that back in. Put your float pin back in. I'm using my belly as a rest here. You can use anything you like. If you got some abs, you can sit against there. And let's have a little peek. That is, man, that is so close. Look at, let's get really specialized, huh? Let's get our calipers out. See where our setting is, where it just touches that float, which is there. 0.27. So, I mean, we got to come down a bit. So let's, I'm going to take this back out. I'm going to bend that tang back down a little bit more until it's at 0.25, which is apparently your outer maximum for the float. So the float, that would be meaning that the float in its normal position sits here when it shuts off the fuel, not down there, not closer to the machine surface of the bowl, but just level there. So let me shut you guys off. I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to get it perfect. Then we're going to move on. Okay, right back. All right, guys, we got that situated. It took a little bit of finessing, to get that bent. Like I say, don't push down on the float and push it against the needle, because you'll damage the Viton tip on the needle. So the way you're going to check this now is you got this float sitting here like so. You could put the bowl on if you want to. I just take this hose because I don't want to show you my lips. Nobody wants to see my lips. And blow in it or suck in it. So suck in it, and can you hear that? It holds vacuum. So it's sealing off properly, which means when it's in the closed position, it's not going to let fuel in. It should also, you can kind of just balance this in your hand, it should also allow air, or actually in this case fuel, to come in. And it does, no problem. So we're good. That's it for that needle and seat. That's all set up, the float's set up. So let's move on to the rest of the assembly, huh? Now, we got a gasket here. Set that down there on that machined edge. Make sure your pieces are all in order there. There you go. Got your new bowl. Bowl goes on there. Nice and snug. You got your new bowl plug, I guess. This is also, should clarify, this also allows, can you guys see in there? There's not a lot of room really for the fuel to get to the jet. And it goes through this hole in here. Make sure your hole here and your plug, you might even call it, it's not really the main jet. It's hardly, don't know what you would call that really. It's just your fuel inlet in your bowl screw. Needs to go through there, then come through there, ends up going through that jet there. That goes in. Should have a gasket on there. That goes on there. And what else? Is there anything else? I think I'm all out of parts. That's all the parts I got. This is a taper fit right here. Plugs it up inside here. That's your fuel bowl drain. As long as that seats tightly, you're good. That goes on here. Gasket. Snugs up. A 3/4 inch goes in there. Snugs. Same, not Gorilla, monkey tight. That's the extent of it, guys. That's your Carb. Basically rebuilt. Check all the basic stuff. Float. Needle seat. Make sure everything's working. The jet needle goes back in. Closes off, just seats gently back in there. I believe you're probably supposed to be about 1.5 to 2 turns out when you're trying to get the vehicle dialed in. But yeah, that's it. Done. Next time we see this, it should be in the truck. Okay, guys, hope you have a great night, great week. And hey, I think we're going to be back on it again Friday doing some wiring. This was just going to be a fast little video just to give you guys something to look at during the week and something for me to do in the shop. Take it easy. Catch you soon. Good night.